Recording. Yes, the messy room is still messy. I have received the final two items for the rack reorganization, so it's probably going to be a weekend project. I don't know how much I'm going to stream. I might stream it. We'll see. Um, but you're here for QCA for today. I'm not going to lie. I am tired. I am really tired today. Um, and I think some of our normals are not here because we didn't. I just barely started like right at 6:30. So and I you can probably hear it in my voice. I've been fighting this. So I have a question that I added to the list. Uh, yeah, and Jalapi's going to give me crap about my sleep schedule. And so let's talk about that. Let's talk about sleep schedules, okay? So the question I put up here is, what how much sleep do you get and when? Obviously, it's important to get sleep, but there are a number of things related to this that I want to talk about. So another question that follows this is, what is a bimodal sleep schedule? And I am contemplating doing it again. I don't know how many of you have actually done this, but you can go do a search on the internet. Here, I'll do it really quick, even though we're audio only here. So bimodal sleep. What is bimodal sleep? Bimodal or polyphasic sleep is the practice of sleeping during two periods over the course of 24 hours. While polyphasic sleep refers to sleeping multiple times a night for more than two times. I've tried both, and I've had success with bimodal sleep, biphasic if you want, and not polyphasic. Polyphasic, when I tried that, I could never recover. I was always tired, and my body won't let you. Some people have monophasic sleep schedules and they can't get out of it. The quick and dirty answer here is like when I'm training, like if I'm doing triathlon training or I'm doing just regular gym workouts or anything like that, I cannot do bimodal sleep. For some reason, I sleep deeper and I sleep longer when I do that. And I don't honestly I don't know which one's better so far. So when the moment when I was in the best shape of my life, I definitely was doing um, sort of monophasic sleep, but I would also take a nap in the middle of the day for about an hour, half an hour to an hour. Uh, yeah, and the nap would usually come in the afternoon after I was doing some training. So I would go paddleboarding after work, and then I would fall asleep kind of early, and then I would I mean it wasn't a lot, right? It was like just like an hour and a half or so. It wasn't like a 3 hour thing. Um, and 3 or 4. A lot of people are supposed to sleep 3 or 4 hours a night and 3 or 4 in the afternoon. So last year I did bimodal sleep. I did biphasic sleep. I slept at night and I had a lot of success with it. I was able to get a lot done. I made bonsai. I made a lot of friends in the European and Asian time zone, and it was fantastic. And so one of the reasons I'm dragging today is because this morning I was streaming at 4 a.m. So I started streaming at 4 a.m., which was really great. I really got to connect again with all of my old friends from that time zone, and um, and I have the freedom to do this. That's the other thing too. Is like how do you have the freedom to be able to do the streaming at that level? I mean, I'm sorry, not streaming sleep like that. If you don't have that freedom, people who talk about biphasic sleep usually invoke like siestas in South America, things like that. And there's strong opinions on both sides. And there's not a lot of really solid science on it. There's a lot of people talking about it. Polyphasic sleep, there's not much there. Every time I bring this up, so last time we brought this up, like a year ago, the biggest scientific argument against it is REM sleep and the circadian rhythm. And did I say circadian? I think I meant circadian. The one would be the rhythm of cicadas in your neighborhood. The other would be like when you see the sun and you fall asleep. Uh, mm, whole playlist and enjoyed running every second. Oh, thank you very much, engineer. As it's circadian rhythm, yeah. So so anyway, uh, it's weird because you know, when the Arctic polar zone starts up in September and October, and the season starts to change and everything, my biology changes. Honestly, I swear to God, I swear to God, my biology changes. It's like, oh, hey, get ready, here comes winter, and I start, frankly, I start packing weight on, and I start. I mean, for no reason. I swear, there's something biological about it. I swear to God, and I also my sleep schedule changes. So I start to want to do more of this biphasic stuff. And I honestly, I have no scientific evidence of this whatsoever, but I feel like that there are, like leftovers in our genetics somehow that kick in when we start to sense the change. And something akin to hibernation. I don't know, but I definitely have a change in my metabolism. I have a change in my desire to sleep at different times of the day. Uh, and Kano says here, I don't get tired at night. I've always had sleeping problems since I was a kid. Biphasic sleep is the only sleeping cycle where I'm not a zombie throughout the day. Yeah. And this is the thing. See, so this idea that we're supposed to sleep 8 hours a day is manufactured. That's like manufactured by, the industrial age. That was never, I mean, before then, there's like evidence of biphasic sleep that goes back a long time. So, like, here's one. I mean, you hear him talking about the second sleep. The monks in Asia have written about that. And when I was practicing yoga, I studied a lot about the holiest time of the day, which was between, I want to say it was 2 and like 4 or 5 a.m. Like 2 or 4 or 5 a.m. It was like between those time frames. I mean, I would always fall asleep in school too by the afternoon, and it's because they get us up at 6 a.m. and try to. It's actually criminal what they do to people in school in America, because they take people who are scientifically needed to need more sleep than any other time of their lives, and they force them to get up at 6 so that the little kids can go to school later, and then they give them all kinds of after school activities, and they're at school for like 12 hours, some of them, and they don't have a chance to rest or do anything. They're going, and yeah, they're young and everything, but still, that's like, no wonder they're like totally tired. And so anyway, if you have, the biggest thing with biphasic sleep is that you have to kind of find a way to do it. So here's a comment from in a blog medically reviewed by Dr. Anis Raymond, endocrinologist, and yeah. So it was actually written by Sarah Schoen. It says, biphasic sleep describes a pattern of sleep in which a person sleeps in 2 segments or phases per day. Although many people sleep for 7 or 8 hours straight each night. By the way, when I sleep for 8 hours, it's not 8 hours. It's 7.5 every time. It's like, how dogs can like tell you what time it is to eat food like consistently every day. I swear. Have you ever like woken up before your alarm went off? I swear that there's something in our brains that knows, exactly when to wake up and stuff like that. And mine is exactly 7.5 hours. It always has been. It's really weird. And your best routine is 30. DS Legend says, my best routine is 30 to 45 minutes sleep at around 2 p.m., then around 6 hours at night, and I'm good. If I don't sleep at around 2, my night is horror. Yeah. And it's interesting because the next paragraph says, biphasic sleeping is practiced by a variety of people and cultures. For example, people who enjoy siestas are considered biphasic sleepers. Some people adopt a biphasic sleep schedule to maximize their productivity. That was me. If you're a knowledge worker, you need that brain to be sharp. If it's not sharp, you're going to end up making mistakes that are going to cost you more time than it would have been, So taking a nap and having a fresh brain and going at a problem rather than just bucketing down coffee or, and just never getting back to that creative zone. You know what I'm talking about. It's like when that happy, rejuvenated feeling when you first wake up, your mind is, a lot of times I'll wake up with an answer that I'm ready to code, and it'll like pull me right out of my sheets, and it'll make me want to go work on it. People who enjoy siestas are considered biphasic sleepers. Some people adopt a biphasic sleep schedule to maximize their productivity. Additionally, many animals are biphasic sleepers, including birds, insects, and mammals. My dog is a polymorphic sleeper. Polyphasic, sorry, not morphic. They should change into something every time. if that was it the other way around. Um, so here we have anybody on our stage who wants to talk about anything, please let me know. Um, so another comment here. Tool now for coffee routine just makes you sick. Lots of water, sleep when I need it. Brain is good. Yeah, I'm fortunate to work from home, a flex schedule. In the first 30-year career where I can control my every day. Yeah, and this is a really good thing. So one of the advantages, and I consider this a huge advantage. I calculated. You know what? This is a separate question, so I'm kind of getting sucked into another question here. Uh, what is the value uh, of working from home? And this is kind of a natural question, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm kind of adding these. Um, so, so I really believe that working from home, I did the math, and to me, working from home was worth about $20,000 a year in savings, in savings in car costs, in savings in gasoline, in savings in peace of mind, in saving in lost time, 2 hours a day in driving time or whatever, and uh, and the ability to do biphasic sleep, so the productivity level was higher. So I actually did the math out for the total year, and for me, it's just working remote is worth at least 20K. I know that's my number. So other people might have a number, but that's my number. So like if I'm negotiating with a job or something like that, and they're going to tell me I have to come in every day, and I'm going to have to like not wear pajamas every day, and I'm going to actually not be able to skip maybe one day of a shower because I'm really really into coding on a particular problem. Uh, it better be at least 20K or more. Yeah. Well, no, 20K is not how much I'm going to make. It's like that's the total value, right? So if it's not a remote job, I'm going to chop that money and say, or I'm going to add on that money or something. And frankly, I think it's a little bit more than that, because it's just such an impact to your life to have to go in all the time. And I think a big piece of this is back to that biphasic or bimodal, or we'll use the right terms there, biphasic sleep, because the biphasic sleep means that you can rest when you need to, and you can work when you need to, and frankly, you can work out when you need to. It was a major deal for me to just get an hour workout in when I was at work at Nike of all places. At Nike, and not only that, I had to pay $70 a month for the gym at Nike. You think that being an employee at Nike means that you get free gym membership? Yeah, no. That's the craziest thing ever. And I remember it would take me, so I would ride my bike to Nike, and it took me like an hour. I was 20 miles away, and it would take me, I would just woke up, and then I would change. I would keep all my clothes at Nike, and I would change at Nike into the clothes, and then I would get my work day done, and then some days I would I would go change again, and they had showers, thank God, in the building. They weren't in the gym. And I could just use those, and nobody used them. It was really weird because it was Nike. It was probably because it was the IT department, and there was lockers, and you could take over a locker. Took over 3 of them, and then I would go for a run. I was back when I was a triathlete, so I would go for a run for like an hour or 90 minutes. And Nike actually was very forgiving. They would let you take 2 hours to go running. And if you're training for like an Ironman or something, which I never did, but if you did, there was a guy I knew who would take off 4 or 5 hours a day for training and sleep and stuff. And they were very forgiving about that kind of thing. But I mean, so I don't want to slam them completely, but you had to pay $70 for the, but it was still a pain, right? Because I had to go, put on the clothes and go do the running. It wasn't like I could just wake up and turn around and start doing my run and that kind of thing. So that was always kind of annoying. Um, so yeah. What's that? I spite my company by showing up in the office really stinky. if they don't give you a shower in the office, they're bad people. You need to talk to somebody. We actually had them. There was another building I used to work in, and we got them to put a shower in it. The bike community got together and we're like, no man, you need people. You need to do this, and they did, and so they got it. And then this gets into the bike to work question, but so. If I'm working from home, I just hop on the treadmill while I'm at work, or you got a better paying job on top of that. And then, or, I can go outside and go running anytime I want. I can use the other great thing about a remote sleep schedule and a remote work and biphasic sleep. And this is a huge, huge win for me. This is where the 20K number comes in. Is when I live in North Carolina, so yeah, in the United States. So when you consider that during the summer and the winter, there's only so much light during the day, and when you consider your overall life, your overall quality of life, consider the things that you want to do during the day, right? And there's a good chance that you're going to want to do several things during the day while it's sunlight outside or while it's business hours. I'll tell you what, working from home has helped me. I go into like to go grocery shopping or do do an errand at Verizon or something like that. And it's just retired people and moms. I know that sounds really bad to say. I don't mean it to, but seriously, that's what's up during school hours. Nobody else is doing anything. There's like people in the suburbs, mowing lawns for professionally and like building piers and decks and everything. But everybody else is like, they drove to town. They're all in Charlotte doing their banking or insurance or whatever. It's the industry here, or they're at school. So people actually go into the light. Can you believe it? I used to do it a lot more. If you notice, I've started getting more of a hybrid. I'm more of a hibernator around here too. I've been kind of like not talking. So anyway, I don't know what else to say here. I'm kind of discombobulated. I just want to say that biphasic sleep and working remote works really well and can give you back a large percentage of daylight that you can do things that you might want to do during the daylight. And this morning I started working at 3:30, 4 o'clock, and it was dark out, but it was glorious. If you have not worked at a super early hours when there's no sound, everybody's asleep. Even in a busy apartment complex like this, everybody's asleep. There's no, there's no like lawn mowing going outside or air blowers or kids coming back from school, which is all fine. There's no family to bother you because they're all in bed. It's something they can come in and even give you a hug and say they love you, which I know is, you want that sometimes, right? But sometimes, you're in the middle of the zone and it's just you and whatever it is you want to focus on during that time. It's just, and I know that's horrible to say, but it's like, it really is. It's kind of a sacred time. And I'm using the terms from the Vedic, yogic tradition, in that hour between 2 and 5 or 6. Now they would get up and this is crazy, but in the Vedic tradition, they would actually meditate during that time. Can you imagine waking up at 3 a.m. just to meditate? I used to do it. And it was surreal. It was surreal because I would get used to staying up, and then your brain, it was really weird. You go to bed around 3 a.m. Lately I have been going to bed. Before I've been going to bed around 3 a.m. So, I'm the last time I did a biphasic. So what are the exact times? Okay. So the last time I did biphasic schedule, and this was a while ago, but the last time I did it, I would go to bed at dinner time, or around dinner time. And I would sleep until about 8 or 9 o'clock, 9, 10 o'clock, something like that. And I would get up at 10 and 10 or 11, and then I would start streaming or whatever my work was. And then I would have sort of a breakfast, and then I would work or do whatever until 3 or 4, 5 a.m. And then about 3 or 4 a.m. I would go back to bed, and then I would sleep until about 10 or 11. So that I'm reconsidering what the sleep schedule is going to be now because there's reasons that I swear? I'm sorry. But there's reasons to maybe mess with that. Like, I don't know if that's exactly the same schedule I'm going to use now. Particularly because I have the beginner boost happening right at this time. Normally I would do not the beginner boost, the QCA time right now. Normally this would be the time that I would go take a nap and I would, go down. There's a lot of people, somebody else has said, use a power nap at 4 p.m. to compensate. I think the most common strategy for this is instead of going and drinking in happy hour, to take a nap instead, like right before happy hour, maybe a little earlier than happy hour. So maybe 4 or 5 o'clock, something like that. And then taking your nap then, you sleep at 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. You sleep at 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. Hi, Pepper Karen. So this is cool. I'm really curious to hear what everybody else's sleep schedule. Hey, somebody else was on. I rated somebody who was in an 80s dance party, I think, and they were talking about their sleep schedule is completely different too. But here's the thing. If you're going to change it, it's going to take a while for it to catch on. You've got to listen to your body and adapt, right? Just like if you were to move time zones. And right now, the reason I've got a raspy voice and everything is I'm kind of in the middle of switching over, and my body's really feeling it. Because right now I feel like I have major jet lag. You know how you get jet lag when you're like your body's like, dude, you're not sleeping at your normal times. What the hell? And you're just tired all the time. So I'm kind of going through that right now, and I'm trying to figure out what to do with that. Are we doing cheese and wine tonight? No, not tonight. No, I'm gonna cut the wine out completely. It's got too much sugar. The last time I did wine, I regret it completely. It was horrible. I'd rather do vodka and something, but not tonight. I don't know if I'm going to be drinking that much every night either. Drinking also messes with your sleep schedule. How's it going, McTasty? I can't seem to sleep more than 20 minutes during the day. Well, some people, I think it's biological. I do. I think some people can do it and others can't, and I don't think that that's a thing to flex about. I honestly, I think it has something to do with genetics. But I don't have any proof for that. I suffer from panic attacks and have found that afternoon nap to help real positive impact. Yeah, me too. Me too. I mean, I don't suffer from panic attacks, but they feel like panic attacks. And that usually happens when I'm in the bed at night when I'm trying to go to bed. Sometimes I have to read a book or do something, think about something else. Otherwise, my brain will get crazy and I'll start to get panicky. You have to have the discipline to build a routine. Absolutely. 9 p.m. in the summer, probably going to try 8:30 this winter. 9 p.m. sleep, you mean? Yeah. Yeah, I think you might be onto something there. What's the most fulfilling thing you've done in life so far? That's a nice question. We'll put that question here on the end. We'll go have a peek at that one. All right, I think we kind of like talked about the biphasic thing, and working from home and stuff like that. I hate everybody playing and falls asleep, and that's the end of the night. Yeah. So, yeah. Oh gosh, that was a great question. That's a tough one. Give me a second. I'm writing this down. All right. So in college, you did a paper on it for a year and a half. I never returned to a traditional sleep schedule after that. Really? Really, David? That's interesting. Could you mind sharing your schedule, David, while we're talking about it? And we're going to move on to a different question here, but I really like this question. So I'm very selfish with this question. This is my question. Oh, developer wants to talk. You want to talk? ID developer. HD developer. Here, let me give you an invite. Come on in and say hi.
Hello, everyone. Hello,
Hello.
viewers. Hello, Rob. What's up?
Not much. Do you have an opinion on the sleep stuff that we're talking about here?
It's 2 a.m. here. I think I don't have any opinion.
That's your opinion. My opinion is 2 a.m. Okay. Well, that's cool. Let's read. David,
I just came back from a 6 hours meeting, so
Oh my goodness.
it
Yeah.
was a heavy day.
But speaking of that, there's another question here. Do you feel like do you feel like being international and working for a company, I don't know if you do, but a company that has hours that are international has affected your sleep schedule?
I have never tried it, but
Yeah.
to be honest, I have never tried it, so I can't
Yeah.
comment on
Well, I mean,
that.
I'm just curious because there's like I remember like so this is something worth mentioning. Uh, I talked to my manager about my biphasic sleep schedule last year, and they were okay with it as long as it didn't interfere with meetings and my job and everything, and which is great. I mean, most particularly young managers these days are they're into this. They understand, that the whole traditional 9 to 5 thing is total bunk. But as long as you work, and they'll get better work out of you, and they do absolutely. And so here's a weird thing. So it turned out that I work for a company that's multinational. They have offices all over, and one of the support tickets that we got was from uh, India, and I was up, and if I hadn't been the one up at 3 a.m., I mean nobody else on my team was up at 3 a.m. at all, right? So the fact that I was practicing biphasic sleep in this case actually helped me do the job better because I was able to talk to people in the European time zone as a support technician, system administrator, SRE, whatever you want to call it, infrastructure engineer, and I was available, so I could have one-on-ones. And we're talking about complicated tecton pipeline problems that were very, very, very hard to convey just in email, just by writing it and stuff like that. And so I was actually up, and I could say, hey, I happen to be up at that time. Let's talk. And so we could talk, and so if you need a selling point for doing biphasic sleep or doing remote work, there you go. I mean, this was actually worked against me when I was at IBM because Romania was where our main team was, Italy and Romania, and they would have mandatory meetings all the time at like 4 a.m. my time, and it was it was a pain. It was really hard to.
Was it a recent thing?
What's that?
Like, was it a recent thing, like 5 years ago, or how
Well,
much
for
was
me,
it?
the IBM thing was over. Let's see, I ended that in 2012 or so. So yeah,
Okay, that's a pretty long time, to be honest, in terms
yeah.
of having 24 hours schedule.
Oh, the 24-hour schedule, the biphasic sleep schedule that I did at my current place of employment was last year, and I still kind of do that. I record the meeting and go back to sleep. That's a great idea. You have no idea how close that is to the actual thing that I would do sometimes, though. I mean, raise your hand if you've ever literally rolled over in bed with the phone on your ear
Oh,
just to listen
uh,
to the meeting.
who
Come
doesn't
on, you
do
can
that,
let it.
man?
You can confess. You're anonymous. No one's gonna come after you. You've done it. You've done it. I
I
mean,
I used to do it with university lectures, so there's that.
university lectures. But I
It
mean, this,
works.
yeah, and there's that. I don't even know that that's wrong. I mean, it's like, I mean, sure, you're not everybody's always engaged. Sometimes you're on a meeting and it gets so boring that nobody's paying any attention, and they're like doing the dishes and you know, and
I don't know what kind of meeting is that, but it
yeah,
sounds like a lucky meeting in this
I
case.
know. And then you hear the dog bark, and their kids are on them, and then they forget to mute, and you're like, okay, well, that's meetings at home. Counterproductive. I mean, it wasn't a 6 hour meeting. It was a long meeting that would be like at 6 a.m. or something. Did I say
I
six
am
hour?
curious to know about game development meetings.
Oh, I don't know,
Uh,
man. I mean, that would
I don't
probably
know
be
too.
long too. Yeah. Uh, okay, David's saying something about his schedule. That was 35 years ago. I woke up at 5 p.m. today. Yeah. Well, okay. So, I mean, do we want to talk about circadian rhythm or not? Because that's the piece of this that I really have never really got a solid handle on. You tried night shift, Alex, from 8 to 4 a.m., and it was hell for 3 months of your life. Yeah. You couldn't do it. It was the worst thing ever, huh? Wow. Um, that's amazing. Pamper Care says they just woke up from a 2 hour nap. Uh huh. Uh, ooh, there's a great one.
What's the question?
Uh, this is a question related to SRE ops, which I am going to capture right now. It doesn't relate to this, what we're talking about right now, but so we can I always, put the questions in here so we can go back to them. You tried night shift for 2 days and you quit. Wow. Um, yeah. I mean, I had my stepson was an Amazon employee for a while, and he was like, "No, can't do it." But when you're young, you have more energy too. So I feel like I don't know. I wonder if this becomes more pronounced when people get old. There's a whole thing where, old people are waking up at 4 a.m. anyway, and they get less and less sleep because they say they need less sleep. I don't think that's true. I just think that their you need to sleep now, circuitry stops working. And then
What was the working time though in Amazon for you?
I'm sorry?
What was the working time for Amazon when you were
When he
working
was
in
there?
it?
Um, if I remember right, it was like 7 p.m. till like 2 or 3, some crazy thing like that. And the hardest part of the whole thing
Yeah.
uh, was getting him to Amazon because somebody had to drive him. At the time, he didn't have a car, so that meant that, I mean, dropping him off is fine, but then somebody had to pick him up at 3 a.m. or something, and that not everybody's on that
That was
schedule.
before Uber, huh?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's tough. So I don't know. I think I'm gonna try a biphasic sleep schedule. We'll see how that goes. Um, but speaking of sleep and work and stuff, we only have 20 minutes left. I do have. I think this question is probably going to take us out today. We can do some of these other questions tomorrow. Um, I mean, these are some really good questions. Thank you for the questions. I've got them in my list here, so we can put them up for tomorrow. But this is kind of a big one. Um, Alex says, I feel like sleep is for nighttime because my father was an electrical engineer in France working different times of night. He's having mental and serious heart issues because of sleeping. Yeah, and that's what I worry about.
Sorry to
Sleep.
hear that, Alex.
Some people say, I think so. This is definitely true. Biphasic sleep works, but I have never been able to get a good workout in with biphasic sleep because you have a smaller window of time that you're awake. So unless you like work out and then take like an hour, this is another thing too about REM sleep. Okay, so um, this I you have to look it up on your own. Don't trust me on this. But the last time I studied REM sleep, and because everyone's always saying multiphasic sleep, you never get deep, you never get REM, and then you might be able to pull it off, but long term you're going to end up with Alzheimer's or something because your brain's not going to fully recover, and you're going to like chronically damage things because by you're doing this over and over again. And there's no scientific basis for that. I've read that, but the most reliable thing that I read recently, I don't have a reference to it, was that when you're asleep, you do this like hour and then 2 hour and then 3 hour cycles, and within those cycles, there are cycles where you have light sleep, and then you have like getting into the catatonic thing where your body gets paralyzed, which is cool, by the way. Your body actually produces a chemical that paralyzes your body, so you don't walk around and sleepwalk. And sleepwalkers, that chemical doesn't work. That's literally, if you've ever felt like something's on your chest, like holding you down because you're waking up, it's because you're awake and you still have that chemical in your body. It's really fascinating stuff. You should go read about that. So the first phase is light sleep, and that's when you can get woken up really easily. And then you have this transitional state where you're getting paralyzed and you're kind of going into that sleep. And by the way, if you wake up during that time, so like if you get interrupted from a nap during that time, that's when you're like really groggy. You ever woken up and you're like, oh my God, that nap was the worst thing ever for me. It didn't help me at all. So, and then after that, there's REM. So, and when you get to REM, you're like really, really deep down into it, and your brain is healing, and your body's got all of it's producing more growth hormone than any other time during the day. It's like that's the time, the deep, deep sleep. It's why it's so important to not sleep on a couch every time, or to sleep, in something that you're not going to get disturbed, or frankly, if you have a spouse that's really fidgety and hot, to make sure you get that deep sleep, because like 1 hour of super duper deep REM sleep is way better than 6 hours of like disjointed sleep. And that's why alcohol and coffee and things like that mess with you, because alcohol sleep, like when you pass out, you won't remember anything, but you do not enter REM state. I remember reading that. You do not enter REM state while you're asleep because of alcohol. So you might, to everybody else, it looks like you slept for like 15 hours and you wake up with a hangover or something like that. But the sleep from alcohol does not count towards your REM deep sleep quotient, and that's what you really need to build your body, and and uh, falling asleep because of alcohol, because you get passed out. Sleeping from 9 p.m. equals to 11 equals 5 deep sleep hours because the long term memory has to rest before midnight. Before midnight? I don't know if it has to be midnight. Bad sleeping will take effect only for the long term, and it's going to avoid. Yeah, the effects of bad long term sleep are things like high blood pressure and brain problems and not healing and things like that. And if you're older, I think that's going to be a problem. So the takeaway from this, as far as I'm concerned, it helps to get into sleep faster, but it's pretty bad overall. Yeah. Uh,
I
Go ahead.
Sleeping reminds me of a sleeping obligation. It was an interesting obligation in the Islamic tradition.
Mm-hmm.
So you see the night, you divide it into three parts.
Yeah.
One part is for sleeping, and these two parts are for worshipping. But
Yeah.
one part for a different worship than the other. So some people would sleep from 8 p.m. or like 9 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
until like 12 a.m. Then they would wake up and turn whatever time for them into two halves at the time.
Yeah.
And some would spend it into writing a book as a, as a, how can I call it? As a way of worship. Some would
Yeah.
spend it as, just praying
Yeah.
and many other things. But I find it fascinating because this kind of it's a challenge, but not everyone succeeds in it. But
Yeah.
it's a challenge that makes you struggle in order to succeed in it.
Yeah.
You might not succeed, but at least it has an impact on you. I never
Yeah.
tried it personally, but I find it interesting that it. I find it very hard to be honest. I tried it one time,
Yeah. Well,
and
there's you know
it's not easy.
there's a lot of you know older literature that says the same thing. Now, whether it's based in science or not, I don't have the information on that. But they're whether it's Muslim or yogic, or I mean even the Christian monks. I mean they had the Christian monks. The Jesuits and them. They had totally different sleep schedules from the people that were around them, because they had the freedom to do it, right? They had total control of their sleeping time. They had the rituals and thing. So, and they didn't have a lot of other things clamoring for attention. So, but yeah, so
Uh,
this like mini cycle of sleep, that light sleep, transitionary, paralyzing you kind of state, and then being REM state is a thing. And I've noticed that if so, one of the conclusions from this thing, and we definitely need an expert in sleep to come on here and talk about it. And I would appreciate if someone else could find more information to back this up. But I remember distinctly them saying, if you're going to take a nap and you want to wake up refreshed, and you don't want to be, you basically have two options. You either need to finish an entire cycle, which is light sleep, transitionary, and then REM state, and then your body will, by the way, naturally wake you up. Have you ever had this happen? So after REM finishes, you will naturally wake up. Your digestive system will thing. Your heart rate will be up a little bit more. That's usually when you go get a drink, and your body will actually wake you up slightly after each one of these things, and then you go back to bed again, and then you get another phase. And every time you do it, you go deeper. They get a little bit longer. So when it's the 7 hours, if you do it right, there's a smaller one, and then there's a medium sized one, and then by the end, when you wake up in the morning, you've had a really long one, a really long that kind of thing. That's a great one. Yeah. So, but the thing is if you wake up, if you sleep too long, if you take more than a 20-30 minute nap, and everybody's different, but I've noticed that if I sleep for more than 30 minutes, if I try to set my alarm for 30 minutes, I'm dead, because after 30 minutes, I'll have already entered into the transitionary time, and I'll wake up and it's like I'm walking through mud. It's like, it's the worst thing ever. It's like, please just let me go back to bed.
it's
And
like everything is heavy.
what's that?
It's like everything is heavy.
Yeah, everything's heavy, and you're the opposite of like invigorated, right? But when you take like a 20-25 minute cat nap during the middle of your driver's ed class in high school, like I used to do, and you have your head on the desk, And anybody ever have this happen? You take like a 20 or
Oh,
30-minute
I
nap and
did
you wake up and
it.
you're like, boom, you're like on fire. You
I
ever had
did it
that?
one time in a chemistry class in college in the first year. That day I didn't sleep at all. I survived 24 hours,
Oh boy.
and then I slept for 1 minute. And during that 1 minute, the teacher asked me something, and
Oh
and it was
gosh.
just all of a sudden I was like, "Oh, this is the answer." And then I went back to sleep.
You went back
It
and you
was
just went back
very,
to sleep.
it was a very painful
But
experience.
it's
Uh,
crazy. It's that thing where you sleep for a very short time and it feels like you were asleep for like 3 hours, and you lose track of time. You wake up and you're like, what? It's just super amazing. I mean, the whole
I,
chemistry of it is cool.
I feel like the wisdom of it in this life, like the time thing, is
Yeah.
that it reminds you that your perception of time
Oh
is
yeah.
very is very unstable. You cannot rely on it all the time.
Yeah. And then according to
It's
Marvel,
like the clockwork in computer.
yeah,
Anyone can change it and manipulate it in so many ways.
yeah, you
You
can
cannot
totally
trust it.
change. And I think it's funny to that we have so many different stories about dreams and stuff. I mean, the whole Marvel thing now, where that anything that happens during a dream is actually happening in the multiverse now. That's now pop culture because of
That will
Marvel.
be a very Uh, there was an interest. I sometimes try to read, the dream interpretation in the
Yeah,
Islamic tradition, but like one of the interesting things is that uh, they always remind you. If anyone who does dream interpretation, they always remind you it's more of a symbolic.
symbolic.
It's a
Yeah,
symbolic. It's not even. It's not. It doesn't have to be.
for sure.
Like coding a game, you have to specify every integer. You
Yeah,
have to figure it out what's the meaning of the symbol that's
this
happening
is
in the dream.
yeah, this is totally true. And yeah, and the lucid dreaming thing all by itself is super interesting. I've only done that a couple times. Um, yeah, I mean,
Do you
over
remember any of
time,
your
some
dreams?
yeah, I mean, I can, I'm able to like automatically fly in my dreams now, and I remember a long time ago. I don't, there's something in my psyche that has always wanted to do that, and there was a time when every time I did that, I couldn't do it, but now I can kind of make it happen, and it feels real. It feels like I'm actually making myself do it, but it's fun, and it's not lucid dreaming. That's a completely different thing, but I do remember that there's been kind of a change in the way you know the dream patterns you have. And speaking of dream patterns and nightmares and things, would you ever go back to college? And that's the last question we have for today. Um, and a lot of you are already in college. Um, and the short answer is yes, I absolutely would, but it would be on my own terms, and I wouldn't do it unless the cost, was really low. If I were to go back to college right now, the most likely thing I would do would be to get like a master's of cybersecurity from Western Governors University, which I have no affiliation with whatsoever. They were recently mentioned in the chat though. Um, thank you for the links to the sleep stuff, by the way.
I have
And
been
I'm sorry.
looking for. I have been following some PhD people on Twitter. People
Yeah,
from like different area, like medieval history and whatnot, technology and other departments, biology,
yeah,
in neuroscience. Uh,
interesting.
Nowadays, I just started to notice. I never noticed it before. Nowadays, they started to talk about how academic life is, starting to become, very bad. Like, I don't know, they really have like this.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just started to notice that they started to criticizing it way more than before, and even hating it at some point, and some
Yeah.
people leaving it and becoming a freelancer. Like imagine this: you become a PhD, you work like what 10 years of your life,
Yeah.
and then you realize it's full of crap,
The academic stuff. Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
and
I
it
I have.
doesn't. And in the end, you need funding and management, and it becomes a bane.
Mm-hmm.
Truly,
Yeah. I mean, it does. I mean, my feelings on college in general. I mean, just I've talked about this a lot, so I'm just gonna summarize it really quick. So I think college fulfills four things. College teaches you a skill so you can make money. College is a place for you to discover who you are, figure out, a lot about yourself, what you believe. Uh, there's a lot of sexual exploration and things like that during college. It's a place for you to meet other people, some of whom you might end up, partnering up with permanently for the rest of your life, but also networking, that kind of thing. And then it's a place to go learn how to do your own laundry, and how to do the adult thing, right? Because you're actually living on your own. So my quick take on college is that you can accomplish those four things many ways. You don't have to pay $200,000, for a 4 or 5 year experience in college to get that, and you can do it other ways, the cheaper ways. But the college has just very conveniently got that all bundled up together, and so they still selling. I think the value of a college education is significantly decreased compared to the cost. Uh, and I would not attend the same regular 4 year college that I went to, even though I was discounted because I was Mormon. I would not go to that college today knowing what I know
I
now.
don't know what kind of college you got into, but like the first year I had in my college, I had this, like a crisis in the end. I don't know. I don't know what kind of networking or whatnot it was
Yeah,
there. But for me, when I went into like the first year, I felt like I was with
yeah,
all my respect, I felt like I was a rat in a
right.
lab. It didn't feel like it became more commodified, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's, everybody has a different college experience. I deeply loved my college experience. There were parts of it that were lonely because I worked 3 jobs while I was going to college to pay for it in America, and even then it was reduced. I wouldn't pay the college. Is it important to get a college degree? Hell yeah, I would still get a degree, or I would get credentials. More importantly, today, I would focus. First of all, if I was going into operations, I would focus on, or cybersecurity, I would focus on credentials that don't necessarily come from a college. And one of the reasons that WGU for cybersecurity is so good for that is because it comes with like 86 credentials, and it's tailor made for cybersecurity jobs, particularly for the government and big banks and that kind of thing. I don't
I
know if
would
that would be
like
the.
to add also that certificates now became a social fabric.
Yeah,
Like
they
one,
do.
because I came from the blockchain, era, I realized that it has no ethical nor social fabric. That's why it's not working very well.
Yeah, I think
You
you're right.
cannot
Yeah,
go against the social fabric. It's not easy. You cannot just say, "Oh, I will break the social fabric. I don't need certificate and call it a day." It's
yeah,
not that easy.
yeah, and that's, I think, what you're talking about in a bigger way is the problem with colleges in the 1950s and 40s. If you didn't go to college, you were a bad person. You were, a slouch, and maybe you could
You are a
work in the
barbarian.
trades. And if you worked in the trades, in other words, you worked with your hands, you're an electrician, you were a plumber, you were a house builder, you were okay, but you were less than for doing those things. And I think that's total BS. I think
It's
that's
a
really
capitalist
sad.
thinking, man. You ignore the value of this human being
Oh
being
yeah,
alive
yeah,
for the sake of your preferences, and you can see that in dating and
yeah,
sexuality and whatnot. It's all capitalist thinking
yeah.
that's transforming people.
I mean, it takes more work, but you can do it. So there's many people who have chosen not to go to college and were very, very successful. Some of them have been here. Billy talked about it. Chris Nova, and many others have been very successful. But in America, at least, they had to do this hard work. So would I go back? Yeah, I would go back. But I would rather take. Every time I think about college, this is what convinces me not to go. I look at the how much it costs. I look at how much, and the mandatory classes, like you say, that you have to take, and I start doing the math. Oh, Marine Corps is amazing college. Marine Corps, the military. If you can do the military, especially now in America, they have a cybersecurity division. In Israel, they got one. I don't know about the other countries, but you can definitely do that stuff. Was talking to me about this stuff. Were they? Yeah. So I I mean, you look at my like messy room here with all of these unopened, rack box, and you have to ask yourself, okay, this is my college. I spent the money that I spent on hardware to do. I mean, the biggest thing for a college, and it's not one of my four things that I listed, but my wife reminds me of it all the time, is that when she's going back to get her MFA, and we're looking at MFA programs, which you can go to for free in America, by the way, because they're on grants, and and that's another thing. If you're outside of the country and you can go to college for free, duh, go to college. you know, but but in America, if you have to weigh the cost, you give me the cost of 1 year in college today in 2022, and I will build an entire lab and buy every book on any topic that I want to learn about.
You
And
know what's funny? Half of this cost goes for a football club or,
yeah,
all of these stuff.
yeah. So
So
if
it's
you
like a burn money. It's burned
It is. It's
when you.
absolutely burned. And then my son. I talk about this a lot, but my son signed up for CS 101 at UNC Charlotte, and could could do the entire thing. And another kid, Gabe, he went to UNC Chapel Hill. He was the TA for the assembly class because he knew more than he had already taught himself assembly, and he couldn't test out of that class. And in terms of credit hours, he paid like $2,500 to TA everybody else in the class because it was a part of the thing and it was mandatory. There was no negotiating with him saying he already knew it. He could have tested out of that because he was testing it. His teachers were like, "Thank you for being in our class," and blah blah blah. Well, yeah, they should have been grateful because they just got $2,500 worth of TAing from this kid because he knew it all before he went there. And the system, I mean, is just messed up. It's messed up. There's no room for customization to a person's current state. Mentoring is always going to be better for that. Mentoring is harder to get a piece of paper for, though. And then, like, how do you prove that you know what you know? And so, if
Do you
you're gonna,
think he was
spend all.
wise,
Go
a
ahead.
person?
What was that?
Do you think he was a wise person?
I think. Well, yeah. I mean, both of them were very successful. One of them left because it wasn't worth the money and went up to Canada and got a much better deal on the education. The other one is still in it and paying the money, paying the money, paying the money, and will easily be able to pay it back though because that's the thing with college. You go out and you've usually got a skill that you can pay it back unless you learn Russian. Like or basket
Wait,
weaving. I learned Russian and there's no way that just knowing how to speak Russian was ever going to be enough to pay back what I did. So I had to switch over to tech. And I took on. I got out of college. This is a true story. I was a very successful Russian graduate. I worked in Russia. I had a lot of great experiences over there. I was a cruise director and all of that. And after I got out of college, during the off season for that company, first of all, that company was barely paying me minimum wage because they knew I loved it so much. And and then I had a child and I couldn't. Um, it wasn't enough. I had to find something else. So I actually had to take unemployment after college. I could have, dude, you talk about Russian mafia, but you know what? If I had had the inclination to do it, I was directly approached by mafia on several occasions that would have made me a multimillionaire. And when I was there, and when later on when they came here to tour in the United States for AT&T, there's one
but
guy
you
who
were
wanted me
too
to set up a
ethical.
chop shop with him. I was
You
like,
were too ethical for them, right?
yeah, it's like, look, if I was after the money, there's a lot of other ways. And so I ended up taking unemployment with a child until they opened an internet service provider across the street, and I walked past it one day, literally, and I walked in and said, "What are you doing here? This is awesome." And I learned, and they gave me a job, and I think I have this reversed. I think that company went under, and then I was on unemployment for a while, and then I went and moved to another state that apologized for paying me lots more money for the same job. It was just the world was not ready for the internet yet, and that particular company, FiberNet, by the way, FiberNet, FIBER.net. They're still in Utah, and I still own stock, even though I'll never be able to get it out of them because
Uh,
I don't want to talk
Man,
about it.
one of the most badass people I have ever met.
What's that?
He got one of the most badass people I have ever met was a person who who never worked in a job in their life and
Yeah,
married during college.
yeah.
like in the first or second year, and they had businesses and whatnot.
Yeah.
That was like very crazy.
Yeah, they had their own businesses, or they're like, hey, Turkey. They had you know, things going on. And I actually ran a business. I started doing Scholastic aids and made flashcards and Russian roots and stuff in college. And I don't know. I sometimes I feel like I might not have, but today when I go back, yeah, today if I were gonna go back and I had the money, uh, the thing I would do is I would be really picky, and I would find a college in America that was dirt cheap, that specifically one that I paid by how much time I was there, and not just some X amount for so many hours. And that's what WG does. And I know we've had people meeting with the marketing department and stuff like that. I want to promise you that I have nothing affiliated with WGU, but that particular model of paying as you go for what you do really appeals to me, because you can
College
get,
Cloud 101.
yeah, you can get, if you pay per semester or something. So the more things you put in there, the more bang for your buck you get in America terms. So anyway, that's all we have questions time for today. I'm gonna wrap it up, and I'm gonna go. My wife is actually calling me right now. So bye
Have a
YouTube.
good day, man.
Stay.
Bye, you.